So it's been a long morning, yes? So I am the only thing that stands between you and Roberto Lima and lunch. So I will try to be concise in my talk. I do not have a Goldman Sachs background, but as you can see, I have very sexy slides, as our friends from Geeky had. The main topic of this talk is about the evolution of capitalism. This is, we think, from Patagonia to Geeky to Natura to many of the other companies in this room, the main trend of our lifetime. More important than peak oil or climate change, more important than addressing income inequality or growing polarization of our politics. The most important trend of our time is what's happening right now in the evolution of capitalism. We're moving from one era to the other. And in that moment of transition is incredible excitement and power and potential to change the world. We're moving from an era of capitalism that was focused on one objective, and one objective only. Very clear and precise, very easy to measure. It's to maximize shareholder value, and not the shareholders of the Delfines, but the shareholders of the people that own the shares of our stock, of the companies that we build. We're in transition from this single-focused era of capitalism to a new era of capitalism in the 21st century that will be focused not on maximizing shareholder value, but maximizing shared value for all of the stakeholders. And this is taking place in technology, this is taking place in consumer products, this is taking place in energy, in education. This is taking place not just in Brazil or in Latin America, but it's taking place all around the world. It's the single most important trend of our time. It's what our children and our grandchildren will be talking about, and we are lucky enough to live in this moment. There's one problem. Despite Claudio and Raul and our three co-founders from Natura, they are unfortunately the exception to the rule. And it is not because, as maybe the media would tell you, that they are extraordinary people. They are ordinary people with extraordinary vision and capacity to go against a system. Because the one problem with this transition is the system was not designed to do this. And so these leaders are working against the system. They're swimming upstream. They're flying against a very strong cultural headwind. For three very simple reasons. One is there are no standards that help us tell the difference between a company that talks about a circular economy and a company that puts those principles into practice at a very high level. There are no standards to tell the difference between somebody who talks about sustainability and a company who actually practices sustainability, not just at a good level or a better level, but as Edgar said, at the best level. And so we have to have a way to separate, to distinguish between good companies and just good marketing. Second issue, corporate law, which is the operating system of our businesses, was actually not designed to enable us or to encourage us to create shared value. Corporate law, particularly in the United States where I'm from, but in our workings with corporate attorneys from all around the world, in pretty much all around the world, corporate law is actually an impediment to using business as a force for good. And when those companies under those corporate laws are in the capital markets, it's even more difficult. And the last thing, and maybe even the most difficult, because I can do this for myself, whether or not you can tell the difference, I know the difference for my company. Whatever the law says, I still have to go to work every day and make decisions, whatever the law says. So maybe those two incredible leaders like the ones we've heard from today can make those changes. But those leaders, those types of managers are very few and far between. Most of us, like myself, need help along the way. We need a Sherpa to help us up the mountain. We need a guide to take us along that trail. There are no tools to help us measure and manage our impact with the same rigor as we measure and manage our profits. And so if there's no standards, the law is an impediment, and there's no tools, it takes Hercules to make that journey alone. And so these are the things, these are the problems with us being at this inflection point of history, is our institutions have not caught up with our aspirations, with our intentions. With the evolution of capitalism, importantly comes an evolution of our own expectations, what we expect of the businesses that we work for, the businesses that we invest in, the businesses whose products or services we purchase. The evolution of expectations began maybe 20, maybe 30 years ago, and it started understandably with the products that we buy, something very tangible. I'm going to the store, I buy this product, is it fair trade? Is it organic? Perhaps is it locally made? Maybe I'm in a beautiful building. Was it LEED certified as a green building? These are very helpful because they help us start with the most immediate thing in front of us, which is that which I'm going to purchase for myself. It's a logical place to start. It's the very first step on this journey. The problem is, if I buy an organic apple, that may be nice for me or for my son or daughter, that I know they're going to eat an apple that doesn't have pesticides on it, and so maybe they will be healthy. But it doesn't say anything about how the workers were treated, the pickers were treated who picked that apple. It may be wonderful for me that I get to go work in a building that was constructed to LEED certification. Good air circulation, good sunlight, that makes me feel good, but it doesn't tell anybody anything about what the products were that we shipped out the front door, or what waste or toxins we dumped out the back door, and it certainly doesn't tell you about how anybody inside that building is being treated. And so while the first generation of this evolution was about creating good products and signals to the marketplace to help people purchase good products, the next stage in this evolution is to move from good products to good companies. Because I go to work for a company, I don't work for a product. When I make an investment, I invest in the company, I don't invest in the product. And increasingly, 73% of consumers in the United States, and my bet is it's the same in other countries, care about the company that stands behind the product. They want to know what kind of company stands behind the product. And so what myself and the other two co-founders of the nonprofit that I co-founded called B Lab have done is to take this existing evolution, these existing forces, and just widen the aperture of our lens so that we have a signal to the marketplace for when we know that we're talking or have the potential to do business with not just a good product, but a good company. And those companies, like Patagonia, like Geeky, like Ovis 21, the partner organization in the lower half of Chile doing the grassland restoration that was in the Patagonia video, another certified B Corp. It's a way for companies to find each other, to find like-minded spirits who are trying to use their business as a force for good and say, I want to do business with you. I want to invest in your company. I want to go work for you because I know I can bring my whole self to work every day. So very simply, what is a B Corporation? You can think of it as like fair trade, but for the whole company, not just for a bag of coffee. These companies meet the highest standards of social and environmental performance, accountability, and transparency. And very simply, you could think of the B as it's a better way to do business. Or as Edgar said, companies that are competing not only to be the best in the world, but to be the best for the world. And the only reason I know that Edgar said that is I want to say a big thank you to our translators in the back who, from what I can tell out here, were basically here today only for me and maybe for Andrew for a little bit. So thank you very much. You made this a very enjoyable day for me. Thank you. Very quickly, those performance standards are real and they're quite rigorous. And so this is just a screenshot from something called the B Impact Assessment. It changes depending upon whether you're a small services company or a large manufacturer, different if you're here in Brazil than if you're in the United States. But every company has workers, every company has engagement with its community, every company has an impact on the environment, every company has governance structures that hold it accountable or make it transparent to all of its stakeholders. And so we assess all of those factors, standing on the shoulders of the work of Janine Benyus in biomimicry, or the LEED certification, or fair trade, et cetera. This is sort of standing on the shoulders of all of those more product-specific and creating an umbrella around all of it so we can look at the company. And companies must score a minimum score of 80 out of 200 available points on that B impact assessment in order to be eligible for certification. But even if they reach that high level, and that is quite a high level because not every company does everything well, right? This stuff is very hard. You may be great at environmental practices, but not as strong with your workers. Maybe you are a cooperative or a 100% employee-owned company, but you're not as strong on the environment. It's very hard to do everything well, and so to reach that score of 80 means you are an absolute superstar. But because not everybody does well, not everybody does perfect score, the most courageous thing about these B Corps is that they make their scores transparent for everybody to see. Not just those few things that they are the best at, but even the things that they know they could use improvement on. And so whether you're a company like Etsy, one of the circular economy, collaborative economy companies that Andrew spoke about earlier, they got certified with a score of 80.1. So they were like, they just got over the edge. But they viewed this as the beginning, not the end of the journey. And within a year, they improved their score to 105. Right? So this is one of the things about the B Corp community. It's just an aspirational community about continuous improvement. But perhaps the most challenging thing for companies to be certified as a B Corp is not the performance, it's not the transparency, it's the legal accountability. This gets at the system design of capitalism. Because we cannot change the outcomes, inequality, environmental devastation, unless we change the rules of the game. And if the rules of the game are that you only have one job, which is to maximize shareholder value, then it is a natural consequence that even when beautiful people are running businesses, the outcomes will not be what we would all want. Because the rules of the game are that they only have to do one thing, which is to maximize shareholder value no matter what the negative impacts are on their workers or on the community or on the environment. So B corporations, in addition to meeting these performance and transparency standards, also have to change the legal structure of their corporation so that they are required by law, and their boards of directors and their executive teams and their managers are accountable legally to consider the impact of their decisions not only on their shareholders but also on their stakeholders, to think not only for the short-term return but for the long-term impact of the company. These three things, good things come in threes. Yes? So good things come in threes: performance, accountability, and transparency. There are now almost 1,200 certified B corporations in over 120 industries in 35 countries around the world. Some of these names you might recognize, some of them you might not, because they are banks or technology businesses or publishers or companies that work with smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa, large-scale manufacturers in the Midwest of the United States. And thanks to the leadership of Rodrigo Baggio and Marcel Fukuyama from CDI, one of the first Brazilian B Corps, and to Gonzalo Munoz and the rest of the leaders from Sistema B, there are now over 140 B corporations here in Latin America. This is very exciting. And some of our most highest scoring B Corps, those that are succeeding to compete to be best for the world, are based right here in Brazil and in Latin America. One of the things that's important about B Corps, one of the reasons why they're attracting a lot of attention and energy from entrepreneurs, investors, and policymakers alike, is because they have to meet performance standards, and those performance standards are comparable across companies. We can actually measure the difference in performance. And so we can say, if B Corps are better companies, how do you know? What's the proof? Just because you say so? No, we actually have data on these companies, and we know that B corporations are more durable. During the 5 years of the recession, the big recession in the United States after the financial crisis, if you were running a B corporation, you were 63% more likely to survive that difficult economic time if you were a B Corp. Because the first rule of sustainability is you have to survive, right? But not only were these companies surviving, they were thriving. They were not only creating jobs at a time when in America, there were over 5 million private sector jobs that were lost, and more than half of the certified B Corps were adding jobs during that time, but those jobs were higher quality jobs. Better benefits, better pay, more likely to have volunteer time to work in your communities. Even if you weren't a part of the executive team, you're more likely to get a bonus for the good work that you've done. And while they were creating higher quality jobs, they were also improving the quality of life in their communities by using more renewable energy, by working with suppliers from low-income communities. These are all things that we measure as part of a company's path to becoming a certified B Corporation. And if you look at the median score of all those B Corporations, they're that much better than traditional companies, which is one of the reasons why investors and policymakers are interested in supporting these companies. It's one of the reasons why talent is increasingly attracted to go to work at these companies. But perhaps the most impressive thing about B Corporations is despite or in addition to their individual excellence, they recognize perhaps the most important rule of social change, is that social change is a team sport. I came out of, before I was doing B Lab, myself and one other partner founded a basketball, footwear, and apparel company. So we come from a team sports background. And if I were from Brazil, maybe it would have been a trash-talking football company instead of a basketball company. But for us, it's the same thing. It's the team is about we, not about me. And the team that wins has to win as a team, not as an individual. And they realize the same thing as B corporations. Because no matter how incredible Patagonia is as an individual company, no matter how disruptive Geeky is as an educational company, no matter how amazing Ovis 21 is, or CDI, or Triciclos is, they cannot make this change alone. And so here are just some of the quick things that B Corps are doing together that they couldn't do alone. They are building collective voice. So individually, they don't have enough money to run ad campaigns that can build awareness. Together, we can run a campaign that includes all companies with a common look that says, it's not just the product you buy, but you care about what's inside the product, the company that helped build the product. And so those transparency ads highlight one of the key values of the B Corp community, and whether you're Patagonia or Method Home Products, tell the consumers why this is not just a great product, but it's a great company. They're attracting consumers at the point of sale at retail. Earlier this year, 4 or 5 different retailers in the United States did retail promotions with end cap displays and shelf talkers and lease line signs and all the tricks of the trade of retail, but they did it differently, not just for one product on promotion, but for a whole family of companies that were B corporations, and they created an engagement opportunity with their consumer that said, you shop here today, you can be the change. You can help be the change you seek in the world. You can help use business as a force for good, because we've brought you a series of these companies, a whole portfolio of these companies, a basket that you can take out of the store that lets you know you not only got a great product, but got it from a great company. And those promotions were the most successful in each of those stores, for each of those stores' years. The product sold through better, not only the ones that were on promotion, but the other B Corps in the store, because it became a conversation piece between the person at the cash register or the person stocking the shelves and the customer. So what does Be the Change? Oh, let me tell you. And let me show you the products that represent that high level of achievement, and it created better sales. All of this generates press. Edgar talked about best for the world. You've heard of maybe the Inc. 500 or the Fortune 500 that measure the fastest growing or the biggest companies. There's nothing wrong with being fast growing or big, but we think at least as important, back to the Holy Trinity, it's great if you're fast growing, it's great if you're big, but you also have to be high impact. That's the Holy Trinity of the new economy. Those are the rock stars of the new economy. And so our nonprofit publishes a list every year called the B Corp Best for the World list that recognize those B corporations in the top 10% of all the B corporations in the world for their overall score, or just for their environmental or community or worker scores. And because everybody likes lists, the press really likes lists, they publish it, right? From The Guardian in Europe to Fast Company or Forbes or Business Week. So we highlight those companies that are leading the transformation to a new economy. Even more impressive, at least if you're from the US, I talked about those rules of corporate law that make it an impediment for businesses to operate this way. This is particularly true in the United States. And so this community of businesses, this community of B corporations, work together to draft legislation and then to get that legislation passed in 26 states and the District of Columbia to create a new corporate structure to make it easier for the next generation of entrepreneurs like Claudio and Yvonne Chenard from Patagonia to build into their legal DNA this new way of doing business. That means more than 50% of the states in the United States, including, very importantly, Delaware, which is the state where the majority of publicly traded companies and 2/3 of the Fortune 500 are legally incorporated as in Delaware. The legislation got passed in Delaware, which creates a path to scale for these new economy companies. Because of all of this, the B Corp movement is attracting thought leaders, from former US President Bill Clinton to Nobel Prize in Economics winner Robert Shiller, that are all talking about B corporations as an innovative solution, using good companies to create a good society. Or other thought leaders like New York Times columnist David Brooks, who talks about B Corps representing this beautiful synthesis between two competing ideas that takes the best of civil society, the best of the NGO community, about putting the common good first, and takes the best of the private sector, the ability to attract talent and capital and scale and innovate, and puts them together into a new structure that better serves our need for the next century. But because true leaders not only think about themselves, but the next generation, not only are the B Corps helping to create a legal structure that others can use, whether they get certified or not, but they're also creating tools for other companies to walk this path, to walk on this journey towards a more sustainable, higher impact company, so they can chart their own course to positive impact 2050. So they don't have to do it alone. And so there are now, at the end of this year, there will be 20,000 businesses that will be using the B Impact Assessment as a free educational tool, a free management tool, to help them figure out their own journey up the mountain to creating a stronger positive impact for society, for their environment. And then there are others that aren't necessarily working with one company, but they're working with many companies. Maybe it's a large investor like UBS, or a government financial institution like IDB. Maybe it's a network of businesses like Conscious Capitalism. Or maybe it's a government agency like in the United States, the Small Business Association. Or maybe it's a large corporation like Unilever, who are working with their supply chains. So analytics is the tool that takes all that data that comes in from those thousands of companies and enables managers to have incredible benchmarking ability. How am I doing versus other people of my size in my industry, in my area? How is my portfolio doing against other impact investments, which might make it easier for me to market my next fund if I'm a fund manager? So all of these things exist because of a community of leaders, not only leading for themselves, but trying to lead a much bigger movement to use business as a force for good. Now, this is how we would say it in English in the United States, is we should be the change. This is a global movement of people like you, like me, that are using business as a force for good. It seemed to me that we should make an attempt to translate this slightly into a Brazilian context. So here is my attempt. So in the US, we are great admirers of many things Brazilian. Football is one of them. And so with our friends at Sistema B, the Joga Bonita de Negocios, you have taken this beautiful game with style and excellence and a high level of performance, world class, and you've said, how do I apply that to business? And so when I hear João Paulo talk about all the amazing things that Natura is doing for 2020 goals and its 2050 vision, and I think of what Geeky is doing to revolutionize education, not just for those who can afford it, but for everybody, I think of that is the beautiful game of business. And that's what will inspire the next generation to follow in their footsteps. In Brazil, this started last year. Guilherme was with us at the business school here in Sao Paulo, where we launched Sistema B Brazil with 6 incredible leading companies. Some of you are here in the audience today. If you're from a Brazilian B Corp or from a Latin American B Corp, please stand for a second so we can applaud your leadership. Thank you. That small group of 6 has now become a group of 29 B Corps in Brazil. Now, 29 is a very interesting number. 29 is one short of a very special number. Number 30. I mentioned that there was something very special about the number 3. Whether you're religious or not and you like the reference to the Holy Trinity, maybe not, maybe. If you're from the U.S. and you maybe are someone of about my age, there was a great cartoon every Saturday morning called Scholastic Rock that would teach young kids about math and science and history. And there's a famous one about 3 is a magic number. Yes, it is. And so 3, 1 is about an individual, 2 is about a partnership and a couple, 3 is about the whole. And if you add a 0 to it, that 0 gives it power. That empowers that group to make change that they couldn't have on their own. And so as we were thinking and planning about, we needed to make sure that when we got to this critical moment in the evolution of the B Corp movement, particularly here in Brazil, that there was a very special company that would be worthy of being the 30th B Corp. And so the team at Sistema B got tons of press around the B Corp movement. And they worked with the magazine Isto É to create partnerships to encourage other large businesses to use that B impact assessment to measure their performance, to see how they were doing, if they could be considered to win the prize for the most conscious businesses in Brazil. And after all of that, we realized that there was a very interesting company that was right here. Natura. Bem estar bem. I love that phrase. In no other language have I ever heard everything about the B Corp movement summarized in 3 beautiful words. It recognizes the linkage between our personal wholeness and wholeness of society. The health of me as an individual human being with the health of my relationship to others and to the natural environment and to the rest of my community. Its most important fundamental rule is that we are in a world that should value relationships, not transactions. Transactions are one-sided. Somebody wins, somebody loses. Relationships have a give and take. And as we've seen with Patagonia and Ovis, or we see with Natura and their consultants and their many thousand employees, and the communities in which they work cooperatively to extract the raw materials in a sustainable way, true leadership is about seeking not competitive advantage, but cooperative advantage. And all of this is encapsulated for me in Bem Estar Bem. Now, the other element of Bem Estar Bem and all of these linkages and relationships is it recognizes a fundamental truth of nature and of humanity, is that we are all interdependent. We are each dependent upon each other for our own personal success and for our collective success. And so whenever a company becomes a certified B Corp, they sign something called the Declaration of Interdependence. And thank you very much. And so it's short, but I'm going to read it to you because I think this is with more words capturing the essence, what Bem Estar Bem has boiled down to just 3 beautiful words. It says, we envision a new sector of the economy that harnesses the power of private enterprise to create public benefit. This new sector is comprised of a new type of corporation, the B Corporation, that is purpose-driven and creates value for all of its stakeholders, not just its shareholders. As investors and entrepreneurs in B corporations, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that we must be the change we seek in the world, that all business ought to be conducted as if people and place mattered, that through our products, our practices, and our profits, we should aspire to do no harm and to benefit all. And to do so requires that we act with the understanding that we are each dependent upon another and responsible for each other and for future generations. This is the B Corp Declaration of Interdependence. Thank you. And so at this moment, at this very auspicious moment, I would like to welcome Roberto Lima and the 3 co-founders of Natura to join me on stage to receive their recognition as the 30th Certified B Corporation, the 30th Empresa B here in Brazil, and the 1,200th B Corp in the world. Thank you. Thank you, Luis, Roberto. Thank you. And so, please, Roberto. Oh, as if it were planned. And so if you would come up to the front, there's one other thing I want to show. So this is a beautiful plaque, Somos Empresa B, certificada, that is being presented to Roberto Lima as the CEO of Natura with the co-founders. And there's one other thing that we do as a special ritual whenever we welcome a new B Corp into the community. So we ring a bell. And this has, please come. So we're going to do this together. And so this bell, I'll share with you two meanings. One meaning of the bell is it's when you hear the bell ring in many traditions, it quiets you and centers you and gives you a moment to reflect on where you are for yourself and where you are in relation to others and to appreciate the moment. And so whenever a new company becomes certified, we like to ring the bell. So we at B Lab and all the other B Corps around the world and all those that are looking to the B Corp community for leadership can pause and say, there's another leader that's joined the movement. And so we want to do that for this moment to recognize your leadership. The other thing that's very important about the bell that I have not shared before is there's a very famous poem written by an American poet and songwriter named Leonard Cohen, and it's called Anthem. And at its core, it's about humility. And for all the incredible things that the B Corp, individual B Corps or the movement are doing together, we also recognize that we did not invent impact or sustainability, that we're standing on the shoulders of many that have come before us, and we will be but we will pale in significance and importance to those that come after us. We're just one link on the journey. And so the poem, it's short, 4 lines, goes like this. I hope I get it right. Ring the bell that you can ring. There is no perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And so with that, would you join me together? And we'll give it a good ring, and then we'll all just stay in just a moment of silence as the ring carries. And then once you cannot hear it anymore, I think it's appropriate to join in one more applause for Natura. Ready? Go. Oh, louder. And we'll just let it reverberate.